One thing I always ask clients about is how much caffeine they drink. So caffeine in tea, coffee, Coke, even the same chemical family in chocolate, because it has an enormous effect on our physiology and particularly on our adrenal hormones. So we can actually create a feeling of stress in the body even before there's any external stress. And often people will take, caffeine in because they feel like they need a little bit more energy. And particularly that's why it's such a popular drink first thing in the morning. Because, people wake up feeling a bit tired and they think, right, I just need something to get me going. And unfortunately, what caffeine does is it does fire up the adrenals. So we get an emergency release of sugar prompted by cortisol, adrenaline, releasing sugar from the liver. And that in itself gets us on the run. Now, that is our classic fight and flight response, except often, if we're sat at our desk, we're not running, we're not fighting, we're not actually burning off any of those sugars. And that can have a whole host of other effects on our metabolism, and particularly our weight as well, and where we gather weight, and also on our nervous system. So it's not really energy, it's a firing up of the nervous system and metabolism because of the way caffeine targets the adrenal glands and our hormones from there. So there are really countless conclusive studies that show that caffeine contributes to raised anxiety, irritability, definitely panic attacks, and also long-term to depression and anger. And that emergency response targets every single cell in the body. And this is why I mentioned that it has such a strong effect on our physiology. And Stephen Choniska researched caffeine and its effects on the physiology for about 10 years. And what I'd really love you to think about today is, if I'm already stressed inside because there's a background tension that's come from the caffeine intake I have, what happens when I have external stress? What happens if there's a project deadline at work or something to be done in a hurry? What happens if there's relationship issues or financial issues? You've got to think that caffeine has already lowered internally that stress threshold, and we can very easily create peace of mind by just taking a look at the amount of caffeine we're taking on board. Now, if you do feel very, very stressed and you'd really like to have a look at handling that naturally, then there's a lot more that you can do than just look at caffeine. So, please get in touch if you think that's something I could help you with nutritionally.